This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Hobart is not in attendance tonight, so as council president, I'll be running tonight. I'd like to convene the July 21st, 2025 City Council meeting to order at 6:32. And all able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're gonna be all right. Hey, any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Not really an addition, but Citizen of the Month is under Mayor's report.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody make a motion to accept the agenda?
I move to accept the agenda as not really amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by. I forget his name. Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried unanimous. Okay, we're going to go into the mayor's report, which not the mayor, but we're still having. Councillor Weller had the pleasure of having the Citizen of the Month pick, and he's come up with one. So I'm going to turn it over to Councillor Weller.
Okay. I do have the pleasure of picking someone that is well deserving of being notable for many, many hours. I'm gonna start out by just kind of reading a short little biography of Matt Blair. Matt, growing up, having his parents, grandparents, teachers, and coaches who were all very influential in his life, they were instrumental in Matt choosing teaching as his profession. Matt's grandfather worked here in the mill back in the 50s until it shut down. He then bought a tree farm here in the area. Matt grew up spending a lot of time on the tree farm here in this area. In the back of his mind, he always wanted to live there. Well, after 9 years in his career, a position opened up here in Vernonia. And Matt put his application in, and he got accepted to be a teacher here in Vernonia. So Matt spent the next 24 years as a teacher here. Matt also has been a coach for over 40 years. It's a long time. Matt also has said that sports teaches so many good qualities, and that young people, as far as these qualities, helping them to be very successful in life with these different qualities. And he stated that athletes need to work hard, be resilient, work well with others, and be coachable. He has enjoyed doing what he can do to help these young athletes prepare for life. I want to acknowledge Matt as Citizen of the Month. And I want to thank Matt for your countless hours. A lot of these hours that Matt has put in has been hours that were unpaid. They're all donated time that Matt has put in coaching some of our young people. And some of the young people happen to be some of my own sons that were under Matt's coaching way back when. So Matt, it gives me great pleasure to give you the award for Citizen of the Month.
Gonna get pictures, Stephanie?
If you want to use one of your phones, sure. I can take it from down here.
Can I say a little something?
Absolutely.
The only thing I really had, I wasn't going to say anything, but I got to say this. Even though a lot of it was volunteer, it's not like work. You know, it's what I love. And the kids, they make it all worthwhile. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm still enjoying it. So, and the people I work with, I've coached with Dave a long time. He's a great guy to work with. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I take it there's no presentations tonight? All right. Counselor committee meeting reports?
No.
Should we let, they don't have to stay for the whole meeting.
Yeah, and yeah, you don't have to stay for any further if you don't.
I don't need to feel guilty.
Feel good.
Hey, thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move, no counselor reports? I didn't have, okay. Topics from the floor?
I have three. First is Robert Sheffield.
Yes.
Please step up to the diocese there and then you'll have 3 minutes.
All right, 3 minutes. All right, keep it quick here. I've been nominated to speak on behalf of the residents of Springboard Drive concerning the development and the impact on the roads that both the development and the recent sewer upgrades have caused. Number one, the roads were torn up for the sewers and were not returned to the state they were prior. Number two, East Street is a one-way street. With the new development, you are more than doubling the traffic that will be using that one-way street, and it's the only way in and out of Springboard. So we would like to know what the plan is. Our request is that the city and or the developer pay to widen and pave from Springboard, where the developer has an obligation to pave, up to Weed, in order for us to safely get in and out of the development. If there's an emergency, a fire, I would think the city would have a liability in case such an event happened. You got so many families trying to get in and emergency vehicles are out and emergency vehicles trying to get in. It's going to be a nightmare. The road as it stands now is only a one-way road. Springboard is a private road, with the developer having to pave around his 7 duplexes he's putting in. That will leave part of Springboard as paved, and I assume the city will then take it over, or the rest will remain unpaved and still privately owned by the citizens of Springboard. I know there's a couple other concerns about possibly putting another road through, what is that, G Street?
Yeah.
So there's 2 ways in and out. I've heard conflicting reports about this. I've been talking about this for 2 years now. I was promised by the city administrator that a meeting would be held at the beginning of this year to address these issues. Never happened, and I don't get any return phone calls when I leave messages now. So we're looking for answers and demanding some answers and actions from the city. It's affecting, you can't walk up the road because the gravel used on the repair on East Street is too big. You roll your ankles. It's tearing apart our vehicles, and it's a nightmare already. And they've only just begun building the new duplexes. So unless you have any questions, I guess that's what my 3 minutes. Anyone want to chime in on their own?
I think you nailed it there.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we live down West G Street. Well, first off, the sign isn't properly named. It should be West E Street, but it's not. It's just E Street, so it confuses everybody and everybody gets lost. That being said, the road that was fixed or put in or whatever after the sewer was put in, they laid the big gravel down. And that was really, I drive an all-wheel vehicle and I slid down that hill multiple times and it was not very fun. And then they did put in smaller gravel after I called and they complained about it. And we were under the impression, or we were told by the city, that the developer, as he's doing all this construction and moving these big vehicles in and the constant in and out of all the construction vehicles, that he would be repairing or fixing and putting in, gravel as needed It is definitely needed. And like Robert has said, the large gravel that is now poked through, especially down the hill, does mess with vehicles and the tires, and it jumps up, and I have knocks all over my vehicle, and my vehicle is high. Not everybody's vehicles are high, and I still get kicks up and all sorts of stuff. And there is the concern now that the Rileys have, put up their fence, and there's no more way through bypass, what is it, like a, I don't know what they call that.
Thoroughfare.
It's a thoroughfare, which is fine, it's his private property. But now we seriously only have one way out, where there's been multiple times since we've lived here in the last 8 years where we've needed a second way out, either because the buses can't get through for this or that reason. There's like a tree branch that's gone down, and icy conditions where people are worried about sliding. And so now that we have this kind of second emergency access, if you will, blocked off, which we don't fault, there's no negative feelings towards that. It's just now the question is, with all these houses we have back there, plus the development of 4 more on top of the 3 that he has duplexes. These are 2 families per unit. There's 7 units I've been told that are supposed to be there.
That's a lot more cars.
That's a lot more cars. And so we only have one way in, one way out, and it's all gravel. So I'm just kind of curious. I know right now it's private, and that we are responsible as the neighborhood to pay for the gravel. We've done it before. That's not necessarily an issue. It's just more of, are we paying for that as a developer going to help, pay for that as well? And the emergency punch through, Terry and us aren't really super excited about having a road punch through our houses. But at the same time, I know there's other roads and other access, but I can guarantee you nobody here, in that neighborhood is going to want a road punch through. So it's like, what do we do?
Okay,
We're just,
thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Next person.
I'm not sure if that was her or not. Katie.
Yeah, Katie and Cody.
Oh,
And
I doubled. I got it. I took his 3 minutes too.
And third was Billy, if she wanted to.
Yeah, I think I'll just add that we'd like to ask the city to maybe consider a maintenance and safety assessment on the roads in our neighborhood, the West G Street, West F Street, and Spring Court Drive, to just, look into some of these concerns that were raised today.
thank you.
And the sewer too, like the sewer grate, without sticking above the rest of the road on the.
Okay, so when we take topics from the floor, we usually don't pick those up and discuss them immediately. So you notice people have been writing down notes, so we will. Thank you for your input, though. Okay.
Also, they don't have to stay either.
What's that?
They don't have to stay either.
Oh, yeah, and at this point, because we got a boring hearing we're going to be doing, so.
It's not a boring hearing. It's a very important hearing. Some of them might be affected.
It might affect some of them if they're.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
If any of them.
Okay.
So at this time, I will recess the city council meeting at 6.
You're not recessing it. You're just going to call the hearing to order.
Okay. All right, I'm going to call a hearing to order. For public hearing is now open at 6:45. For the purpose of considering changes to Title IX Land Use and Development Code, PA 25-01. The procedure I will follow tonight is in this manner. Read the disclosure statement, hear the staff report, hear public testimony, close the hearing, and then the city council will deliberate. Ladies and gentlemen, I call this hearing of July 21st, 2025 to order. My name is Dale Webb. I'm the council president of City Council for Vernonia. Our role is to conduct public hearings and make legislative decisions about land use matters in Vernonia. The item before us tonight is a legislative item. Members of the city council are to be unbiased, before the start of the hearing, I ask the members of the council whether they have any potential conflicts, such as family, financial, or business relationships with regard to the land in question. If such a potential conflict exists, I will ask whether the counselor in question believes he or she is without actual bias, or whether he or she would like to step down during the case review. Copy of the rules of procedure for the hearing, the agenda for today's hearing, and copies of staff reports are available upon request. Any person with an interest in today's agenda item may offer relevant oral and written testimony, but please only speak when I identify you for that purpose. It is also important that you make your best case to the city council, because although all of our decisions are subject to appeal, any such appeal will be heard by the Land Use Board of Appeals, and they will decide the appeal based solely on the evidence in the record before us. Please make sure your testimony is relevant to applicable standards for the item in question. Please do not repeat testimony offered by yourself or witnesses. I think your testimony is irrelevant and repetitious. I will interrupt and ask you to continue with another subject. Demonstrations from the audience are prohibited. Please refrain from them. Comments from the audience will not be part of the record. Okay, any questions? That concludes the introduction. Does any city councilor wish to declare any potential conflict of interest?
I would like to, because I own property in it.
Kind of in the same boat.
Yes, so both of you guys will declare a potential conflict of interest. However, due to the necessity of having a quorum, you guys are able to participate.
We're able to do what, Stephanie?
Participate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like when you pass the budget. It will affect you, but you have to, so.
All right. Then would the staff please proceed with the summary of their written report? Is that you, Ben, or?
Nope, Erica's on the. We can't hear Stephanie.
She's muted herself. She can do it herself.
Can you hear me?
Have to turn her up.
A little bit. Try it again, Erica.
Can you hear me?
Not very.
Hello?
Try it again.
Oh, there you
Hello.
are.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yay. Okay, good.
You're loud and clear.
Okay, I am Erica Smith, the city planner. I'm going to go over the staff report. This is the same staff report that was presented to the Planning Commission as they recommended approval. So we didn't make any amendments to the staff report. And then done, you can, Ben and I will be available for questions. So I'm going to go over some of this pretty quickly because it's background information that you all are, I'm sure, familiar with. But Chapter 5 is the part of Vernonia's land use development code that has regulations for managing the flood hazard. And it's required for us to have particular regulations in the code in order for the city to qualify for participation in the National Floodplain Insurance Program, which offers affordable floodplain insurance to property owners in the floodplain. In 2024, we amended Chapter 5 just to get up to date with state requirements and add some particular clarifications and requirements that were specific to the city of Vernonia. Now we are proposing updating Chapter 5 regulations in response to requirements from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, as a result of a lawsuit action against them basically saying that they were not conducting their due diligence to enforce the Environmental Protection Act to protect habitat for several salmonid species. And so the options that were given to municipalities and jurisdictions to comply with FEMA's new requirements, which are, just to caveat, these are temporary requirements while FEMA finishes developing their finalizing the regulations that they're going to require ultimately, which will happen in probably not until 2027. So these are called the pre-implementation compliance measures, or the PICM measures. And the options given were to, one, basically issue a moratorium for all development in the floodplain and not consider any applications for permits to develop in the floodplain. The second option was to adopt regulations into our floodplain code to achieve no net loss of floodplain function, which is spelled out by FEMA as needing to achieve no net loss of habitat based on floodplain volume, impervious surfaces, and vegetation in the form of trees. The third option was to treat applications for floodplain development permits on a case-by-case basis and require each applicant to perform and pay for a habitat assessment, which would then need to be reviewed by the city to determine if they were complying with the no net loss standard. In December 2024, I believe Ben held a work session with City Council to discuss those options, and Council directed staff to move forward with option number 2, to adopt additional regulations based on FEMA's model code that is basically the interim code while they finish developing the final code. So in terms of the potential impacts, sorry, I'm scrolling here. Although, both at the state level and many jurisdictions responded to FEMA basically saying this is happening too quickly, you're shoving this down our throats, we're not able to follow our standard procedures for adopting new code, so that in many ways is not ideal or desirable for our community. The alternative is to risk the eligibility for the National Floodplain Insurance Program, and losing that could potentially cause people to lose their federally backed mortgages and potentially lose their homes if they have affected property in the floodplain. So that is why we move forward with this option, not because it was a desirable option, but looking at it as the lesser of 3 evils, essentially, and considering that the alternative was too great of a risk to assume on behalf of our community. In addition, Vernonia's floodplain is largely developed or restricted by the existing floodplain regulations. So, these standards would create some additional cost and red tape for some people with some portions of their property in the floodplain, depending on what they wanted to do. But, that's a little bit of an uncertainty without knowing all the specifics, and each property is unique. So, the impact is a little bit uncertain, but we're still recommending approval of these new standards to, eliminate the risk of people losing their floodplain insurance. So essentially, the proposed additions to our current floodplain regulations include a new standard for no net loss of floodplain functions, which, as I discussed before, have 3 proxy measures to establish floodplain function, and that is that there be no loss of volumetric space for fish accessible space and flood storage capacity. 2, that there not be an increase in impervious surfaces, which prevents natural infiltration of water into the ground. And 3, removal of trees/vegetation. Go down to findings now. If you have questions about the specific language in the draft text, I'm not going to go over that all right now because it's pretty extensive. So I'm going to jump into the criteria for approval based on Vernonia's land use code for approving legislative changes to Chapter 5. So the authorization to initiate amendments the proposed amendment has been initiated by the city, which has the valid authority to do so. This is the second public hearing, which is required. We have notified the state DLCD agency of the proposed change. And given notice to all of the property owners potentially affected by owning property in the floodplain. And then we're following all of the procedures required for Type 4 legislative review procedures. For decision criteria listed in our code, we have to look at the impact to traffic generation and circulation patterns. Staff found that the code revisions are not of a nature that would result in more development, and so traffic generation will not be impacted. It is possible that future circulation patterns might be impacted if the city's ability to carry out planned road improvements are restricted by the new standards for no net loss of floodplain function. B is demand for public facilities and services. Staff found that the code revisions are not of a nature that will result in more development and thus are not likely to alter or change the demand for public services other than review of potentially new floodplain development applications and the new standard and applying the new standards to those applications. C is the level of park and recreation facilities. Staff found that the nature of the revisions would not result in a change to the level of park and recreation facilities. D is economic activities. Staff found that the proposed revisions could have an impact on economic activities. The new standards for no net loss of floodplain function do have potential to curtail new development on the limited number of floodplain properties within the city that remain undeveloped or underdeveloped. E is protection and use of natural resources. Staff found that the proposed revisions may improve protection and use of natural resources. The intention of the new regulations is to conserve habitat of species protected by the Endangered Species Act, such as salmon and steelhead. However, because the options for compliance have not been developed for our local context, they do have the potential to be cost prohibitive for development on properties in the special flood hazard areas, with questionable effectiveness in regards to achieving the goals of the Endangered Species Act. Staff found that the proposed revisions are not likely to impact special purpose plans in the city or public facilities. The next criteria is a demonstrated need exists for the product of the proposed amendment. Staff have found that the need for the proposed amendment has been created by FEMA's new requirements for adoption of no net loss of floodplain function in order for a community to remain eligible for the National Floodplain Insurance Program, of which Vernonia is a participant. And then 3, the proposed amendment complies with all statewide planning goals and rules. Staff found that the proposed revisions as part of FEMA's model code language are still under review by the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development to determine whether they comply with statewide planning goals and administrative rule requirements. As the city's comprehensive plan is designed to implement the statewide planning goals in the city of Vernonia, Determination of whether the proposed revisions are in compliance with the comprehensive plan will be influenced by the state's determination of whether they are in compliance with statewide planning goals. And then I think lastly is the criteria that the amendment is appropriate as measured by one of the following criteria. It corrects an error of the plan. It represents a logical implementation of the plan. It is mandated by changes in federal, state, or local law, or it is otherwise deemed by the city council to be desirable, appropriate, and proper. So staff found that the proposed amendment is in response to a mandate by FEMA, which is a federal agency, and is necessary for the city to maintain eligibility for the National Floodplain Insurance Program. All else being equal, it would not likely be the city's preference to adopt these amendments as they stand. However, compared with the alternative of risking an FIP and eligibility, City Council has deemed this amendment appropriate, and thus it meets these criteria. Then the rest of the report is basically stating that we have followed the correct administrative procedures and given notification to the appropriate parties. Finally, as I mentioned before, our staff's recommendation is that City Council approve the proposed amendment to Chapter 5 to add the new standards for no net loss of floodplain functions for new development in the floodplain.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Take any questions.
So, any questions from council?
No, is that in your order?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to comment that because of the city's experience with floods in 96 and 2007, we have a very robust way of dealing with all of this and have been very, very cautious and careful to make sure that nothing's being done that's going to affect salmon-bearing streams or other areas. And I appreciate everything the city has done to implement all those things. Unfortunately, we are driven by regulations that come from on high in some cases, this being one of them. I don't imagine, and Ben can speak to this, and Erica, whether this really is going to change how we do business. I can't imagine it's going to change much because we have already implemented so many of the things that we're being mandated to do in order to protect those areas.
Are you asking us that?
No.
Oh, okay.
I am.
Oh, I was just asking if you thought, if you were asking us if we thought it was gonna.
That'll be the follow-up.
Oh.
But I appreciate all the work that's been done on this. My background, I started here in Vernonia with flood recovery. We had a flood, my house was flooded, I stepped in to help. And so I've been through knowing what all this is about. I don't do that anymore since I retired 20th of June. But I really appreciate everything that was done here and how thoughtfully it was addressed and how tightly you worked to make sure that we, the city, did not have to do any more work than necessary. So that is my statement and comment, and if you would like Ben to address. I could be totally wrong.
Well, it is gonna cause more work for both people building a house and city staff, so, and cost. But just to be clear, this is only on undeveloped land. We only have 10, probably about 10 more houses to be built in the floodplain. So existing, you have your house, a lot.
The floodplain absolutely has nothing to do with you or your house or anything, or your ability to raise a house that isn't raised, or to fix your house up, or to do anything other normal activities on an already developed lot.
It would affect if you expanded your footprint though, right?
Yes.
That's what.
Yeah. No, could, if you expand, yes. Yeah, but if you already have your house,
Yeah.
raised house on your lot, it isn't, or just any house on a lot, it doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
Or your ability to redo your driveway or whatever.
Councilor Ward?
Has anybody entertained what it would cost to engineer? Because I understand that has to be, if somebody did want to add on, they would have to have that engineered prior to any building that would take place. Is that?
No, not any more than we already require. When you build a new house, you're required to do a site plan by an engineer with all your utilities and everything engineered. So this, this could be added onto that. It isn't going to require special engineering. And that was the difference between with the habitat assessment. Because the habitat assessment, you do the same thing, but you have to hire a biological or a environmental engineering firm to do the assessment. Then you have to pay the city's engineer who has a biologist to review it. And then you still have to do the same things that we're doing in the code. It's actually more expensive to go the other route. And I guess the third route would be, we just don't do it. And well, or if you want to ask questions, I don't want to get ahead of it. If you want to ask questions about other things that may be going on and legal stuff, we can discuss that too.
Questions?
I'm just a little concerned that they haven't finished the rules and regulations and presented them to us. That's my biggest problem.
And didn't she say 2027? Did I hear that?
Well, okay, so we have lost, FEMA has gone dark, literally. I've been trying to contact them. The state floodplain administrator cannot get a hold of them. My understanding is that the Region 10 office in Seattle is dead. It is, the lights are out and nobody is there. We are flying in the dark. We had the lawsuit filed against this by other jurisdictions and private parties in the state. It got suspended and now there's some kind of secret negotiations between the current administration and certain unknown people. This whole thing is up in the air. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess.
I'm going to throw this out there. Can we just table it for the time being? I mean, if they're dark, let's us go dark.
When we get to deliberation.
But we can't not do nothing. So it's council's choice. You don't have to pass this, but then either we just continue to not take any applications until 2027, or the legal process plays out and we get a final answer, or we default to doing the case by case and requiring people to do the habitat assessment. We cannot, I will quit. I'm telling you this, I will quit my job if you don't pass this and I am instructed to process a floodplain development permit and put this community at risk. If people losing their homes, not being able to afford flood insurance, if somebody does pay attention and even down the road, I won't do it. I will refuse to do it. So that's kind of the options. We can pass this, that's fine. We can discuss another route to either do a resolution to just prohibit it or require people to do the habitat assessment as an interim measure until this all gets straightened out. But we can't do nothing and allow people just to continue on and ignore this. I won't do it.
So an offshoot of the potential ramifications of not doing this and having an FIP pulled from the city of Vernonia is that it will make the city of Vernonia ineligible for numerous federal and state grants. Because one of the rules is when you, for instance, doing housing rehabilitation or other things that affect housing, is you have to say, is your community covered by NFIP? And if you say no, check that little box, it says, I'm sorry, you're not able to apply for this grant. Not saying it's all grants, but it is absolutely putting the city at risk, not just citizens for not being able to afford getting their homes repaired, but for the city and the community as a whole to not be eligible for other federal and state grants.
And this, nobody's checking on things now, but you remember that $57 million that the city accepted for the buyouts and all the flood mitigation and raising the homes? That wasn't free money. That was given to us on the understanding that we enforce FEMA's rules as they put them forth. That is hanging over our head forever. FEMA can come in tomorrow and demand their $57 million back. Every single one of those homes that got raised for free, that was on the condition for eternity that the city maintain the flood regulations. And I understand that if council is concerned about passing this with all of the unknowns and stuff, that's fine. You don't have to do that, but we either have to come back with a resolution in an interim state until all of this, the courts in 2027, and say no more new development in the flood zone, or do the fallback and people can go the extra step and spend the extra money on doing the habitat assessment.
Just a reminder, this part is about asking questions about the staff report. You're not deliberating yet. You're still in the hearing process.
Yeah.
Did you say we were allowed to speak during this?
Yes,
It'd be coming up.
Okay.
So maybe a question for Erica or Ben. I had some discussions with you guys last week, you and Josette. Seems like we kind of get caught in the bite on this one. Right now with the litigation going on, with the administration change, the turmoil, if we adopt this and hold people's feet to the fire and make them do what they're supposed to do by these new rules, and it's going to be expensive. And then if they litigate this and then FEMA goes, oh no, we're not doing it, I have a fear then we're on the hook because we required somebody to do something.
We wouldn't be. We're protected by the adopted regulations.
Regulations change all the time.
Yeah, but is it really? I mean, they haven't even identified it.
Whatever they are at the time.
It's like, Erica?
Well, I was gonna say, in terms of people being concerned about cost and coming back and litigating against the city for cost, the habitat assessment option. So the other two options besides what we're proposing would be the habitat assessment, which without putting a specific number on it, I'm like fairly certain that would be much more expensive than having to replant trees or put in permeable paving or, balance your cut and fill. Like that's not blocking development. We're offering a way forward. So the habitat assessment is going to be much more expensive than taking those measures. And then it's a little bit of an unknown, the option of, declaring a moratorium on development in the floodplain. That's a huge opportunity cost potentially for people who have undeveloped land. So I think I kind of go back to the council's original decision in December of 2024 that this is the least cost option for the community. I think we could consult with the city's legal counsel, but I don't believe that following, federally mandated regulations, even if they were to be litigated in court later, the city would not be held liable for any costs related to implementing those regulations. But you could always follow up with legal counsel on that.
Well, and people have been waiting. People have been, because people have been able to build since, but they had to do the habitat assessment and whatever it said. Right? People have been calling and wanting to do a few things, a couple of houses and a couple of shops. And they're waiting to see what council's gonna do. And so, if we could just, they could wait till 2027 and see what the final, because we will end up, something will come in similar to this. This is probably never, some version of this is going to stick, right? You got to remember, again, these options are temporary. We're going to have to revisit all this again, probably in 2027, 2028, with the final whatever they come up with. So people can still wait. They still have this option as a default, but that's going to be more expensive because they're going to probably, hire somebody that's going to be close to $10,000, $15,000, and they're going to pay our city engineer $8,000 to review it. And then they're going to do exactly because it requires them to meet all those same volumetric space, impervious surface. It makes them address the vegetation. It makes them address all of that stuff anyways. So, I mean, again, maybe we just do a temporary moratorium, but like Erica said, that's even more costly to somebody value-wise than not being able to move ahead with something, so.
But if we adopt this, then we just adopt this and run with those standards.
Yeah, then we just do this. People don't need to do a habitat assessment. And honestly, the impervious surface and the vegetation is not the big deal. It's the volumetric space. And we considered, staff kind of came up with some ideas about doing a volume space bank with the volume that we removed at the Barrow site from the floodplain. City council and myself reviewed some documents. He was able to find the Endangered Species Act regulation on credit banking for things like that. Everything would be fine for us to set up something like a volumetric space credit bank where people buy credits for a certain amount is set by council. The problem is you have to have a scientific document to back it up. We can't afford that, and digging out some dirt in the mill site, is a scientist with a straight face going to be able to say that actually helped salmon and steelhead in the Nehalem River and Rock Creek? So it was a good idea. I'm glad we looked into it, but it didn't pan out for legal reasons.
Good. Questions from council? Okay, now is the time for public testimony. Any member of the public wish to speak or present testimony on this agenda item?
I have questions. Can I ask questions?
It's testimony, it's only questions.
Yeah.
Please raise your hand and he'll acknowledge you to have your time to come up.
If I can't ask questions, it's fine.
What do you say?
Like rhetorical questions that you're not actually anticipating, like a heated debate where everybody starts fighting over things, are totally fine.
Okay, then I have questions. Okay.
Please state your name.
Melissa Martin. So if I could, I feel like hearing everything, you guys have much more information and background on what the actual impacts are than I do as a citizen that doesn't understand the code and the impacts, right? So if someone could explain to me in just layman's terms what the city's interpretation of what the options would be for us as residents, that would be amazing. And second question is, is this going to affect the ability to improve the baseball fields down by the old school?
Parks are exempt actually from this.
Okay.
It's in the code. Yep.
Okay. And lastly, what does this mean for future infrastructure improvements that may go through that area, looking at future development for the city as a business owner and looking at long-term investments?
I think they're exempt too.
Some things, it depends on what we're doing. So.
Remember?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so if those are things that could be followed up on, those are testimonially things that I have concerns about. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Got two of them racing up there.
State your name.
My name is Jim Smith. Buying property 810 Riverside. Right now the bank owns it. The only concern I have with this, because FEMA has not decided what they are going to do, if you guys do nothing and we fall out of FEMA regulation, compliance, you guys could be liable. And frankly, I'm screwed. Whether you want to put the cost of a new study on somebody that wants to do something, in the meantime, it's not going to be decided until probably 2027. And there's a good chance it won't go through due to current politics. All I can really say, all I'm asking is, I don't care which option you do not do nothing. You leave yourselves, and of course, a lot of landowners out in the wind. We don't know what this winter's going to bring. And sure enough, way luck runs in my life, you guys do it, this will be the year. Again. So, basically my comment is, we don't know where they're going. You're already in compliance with the current and even a lot of the proposed future. Ride status quo. Don't do nothing. That's all I can stress. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Actually, I think both these two folks asked some of the same questions I wanted to ask. I haven't had a chance.
Your name?
Darlene McLeod. And I happen to have property in the floodplain. My question is, it's just, I just feel like we're being kind of rushed into this. I get it. I get everything you're saying, Susan. I appreciate what you're saying, pointing out all these, what the effect would be if we didn't adopt this right away. I get all that. But I just don't like the idea of us kind of putting a Band-Aid on something until we find out what's going on. Briefly, I did look at this as fast as I could, and probably option 2 would be the best option. That's my opinion, if you're gonna do it. But if anybody's gonna build in the floodplain, they're going to be required, as Dean said, to do all these things anyway. Who in their right mind would do that unless they complied, right? I don't know. I think it's kind of sad though that we're being forced to do this at this time. Okay, given the political ramifications and atmosphere, it's a shame. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you.
All right. Sir.
Hey, Robert Sheffield again. Obviously, like everyone else says, we got to do something. My only concern is this is all Greek to me. I'm a homeowner. I live, right on the floodplain. And I read through parts of this and I don't understand what it means to me financially. I see trees being removed and replanted. I don't know who's going to pay for that, who's going to do it, how many of my trees. I love my trees. And if they're going to come through and get rid of everything, larger than 5 inches diameter, that ruins my land. So I'd like a lot more clear answers to costs and questions and impact to your average homeowner, before it all starts. I mean, obviously, we've got to do something. Do we have to do something today? I don't know because I don't understand it. But I would like to know as a homeowner how it is going to affect me in layman terms. Costs, obviously I understand, building new buildings, et cetera, but there's a lot of things, i.e. the trees. Flood insurance is twice as much as my homeowner's insurance, which I can't afford. So, I'd like to see some answers as, black and white, what the costs are going to be to me. If that can happen, appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Public testimony there. Thank you for your testimony. We'll now close public hearing and hear from the city council.
Don't you have to offer for neutral and?
No, this is everyone. This is everyone.
Do everyone at a time? Nice.
Yeah. It depends on what type of hearing it is.
Thank you.
Past one.
I like that.
So the public hearing is now closed.
Thank you.
And we'll hear from the city councilors. So do you have any questions for staff or wish to present any thoughts on the agenda item? So talking last week with staff, we're like I expressed earlier, we're kind of in a catch-22 situation. And Eric is trying to reassure me that there'd be no legal ramifications if we made somebody do these costly things to develop in there, and then FEMA walks away from it. But the other side of that coin is we're messing with the flood insurance program. There might not be anybody there at FEMA running it right now, but eventually there will be. Puts us in a bad spot, I think. So now we're just going to have to kind of decide what's the safest thing to do for the citizens in this town. I want to hear your ideas, thoughts.
Well, I know that there are a tremendous number of people who have to pay for flood insurance if they have a mortgage. If they don't have a mortgage, it's up to them, but it's wise to have. I would hate to put all of the town at risk based on the potential of 10 new homes. I mean, that's an unconscionable thing to do to our citizenry, in my opinion.
I got a question. Ben, what is the timeline on, do we have time to?
So this is supposed to be, whatever decision we make was supposed to be made by July 31st of this month. And that was one of Eric kind of glossed over, but that's one of the problems is the state mandates us to make changes to our code in a certain way with certain timeframes. The planning commission has really pushed us up against it. And then again, we are in this, we are like defaulted to this. If somebody last month wanted to get going, they can do the habitat assessment. And that'll continue to go or not, depending on what council decides. But I don't know. The way things were, this was all moving ahead until the administration changed. And then we were supposed to get a final draft to actually implement in 2027. I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't think the people that were working on that and timelining that and administering that are working for the federal government anymore. So what do? Do we just, so yeah, no, it's, the whole thing is, you know what word I want to use. PD.
I don't think we can ignore it simply because we're hoping something doesn't happen. I think that it's incumbent upon us to follow the rules. And we've been given 3 options of rules to choose from. And just because we don't like it doesn't mean we just dismiss it and hope for the best that it just disappears under the table somewhere or down the river. I think that we really need to make a decision based on the information at hand today and choose the best choice for not just our existing citizens, but those citizens who, those people who want to become citizens of the city of Vernonia in the future.
Councilor Norman, any thoughts?
I'm on the line because I hate voting on something that we don't know what all the rules are. And we're being pushed and we're stuck, and it's just not fair to us and our community. So I don't like it at all, to be honest with you.
I don't think you're alone.
Yeah, I think I would echo it.
I would
like.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Well, I personally, I'd like more time to be able to, when I read through this, what I don't like is regulation after regulation after regulation. And where do we stop with becoming so regulated that it ties our hand? Look, our hands are almost tied behind our back here. We can't make a decision here because we feel like we're being forced into something that we got all these questions. And I think for myself, until some of those questions are answered, I'm just not for it, so to speak.
The only pitfall is we got all these citizens that have flood insurance, and I mean, you and I, with the situation it is, if we were running FEMA, we'd be going, we know you're in turmoil, we would understand, but we're dealing with the federal government. And you get some bureaucrat that doesn't care, and they drop the hammer on us, pull our flood insurance.
And here
could be hung by a lot of people.
Again, because there's so many unknowns and things have changed rapidly in 6 months. If you don't want to do it, and you guys come to your vote, finish your deliberations, and you come to a vote and you vote no, after you close this meeting, you need to have another discussion and tell staff what resolution you want to bring, either leaving the habitat assessment in place or doing a temporary moratorium on all new development until this plays out.
Well, no, you have to do that today. We can't schedule another meeting before the deadline. So you would have to make a determination today saying, we want staff to bring us a resolution going, we need a direction today.
Yes, it would have to be at the next meeting. We would need to have get a resolution in place.
Yeah, so they would have to direct us today what to bring. Either adopt this or we have to have direction.
And that keeps us in compliance with FEMA. That's one of the three options.
Yeah.
Yes, do a moratorium on building in those floodplain areas.
No new development.
Or make them do the habitat.
Make them do the habitat assessment.
Or do this option two, what we're doing.
Sorry, I was.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility that it could be brought at the 28th meeting? I know that's real, well, our city administrator is not here to address any of it.
I can't notice it with enough time.
Okay. Okay.
For you guys to adopt it?
To review and adopt.
Resolution.
Adopt it at the meeting on, I think it's 24th.
So, and that would be, I don't think that there's, I mean, if we're 4 days, I mean, you guys are having this discussion, we got pushed into this timeline by this rushed, right? I don't think that extra 4 days is gonna hurt us. But what Stephanie is saying is we would need, there's no more discussion. If you vote no on adopting this, you four need to come to a consensus to tell staff now, so that on the meeting of the 4th, we can have a resolution stating, you know, council doesn't want to do it, we're this, blah, 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 here we're doing this other option, until any legal cases or further direction from FEMA.
Susan?
I'll do that language.
One last question. So if we went with if the moratorium was put in place, that would include anybody wanting to do something like a shop?
Mm-hmm. So shops are new construction. It would not stop mechanical permits, or if somebody needs to put in a new heat pump, and that heat pump needs to be electrical permits. Any non-new construction floodplain development permits are still, we're processing those now. All right.
Anything within the existing envelope isn't going to be, it's just new. Yeah, and that could be also very problematic.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
So, yeah, well, just another opinion here, but so if we're going to do one of these options, regardless, we're going to do, staff wants and to be in compliance, we have to do one of these options, 1, 2, or 3. My concern's about the blowback if all of a sudden they just fold tent and then, you know, somebody says, well, you cost us money. Well, if you put a moratorium on something, somebody might be going, well, you held me up for this many years and this cost me value, I'm coming after you. If we make them do the biological assessment, that's going to be more spendy than this option that's.
And they're still going to probably have to do these things anyways.
Yes, and so the least damage we can do to somebody, if the federal government just walks away from this and somebody tries to stick us on the hook, is probably this option that's on the table. My opinion.
And it is unlikely that the regulations are going to go away. They're just going to transfer to city or another agency.
And again, it's all very shadowy what's happening with FEMA and the administration and this lawsuit being paused. But I think part of what they're trying to get to sooner than even 2027 is here's the final thing, right? And the biggest issue with this whole process and this picking one of these pick'ems was that this was this temporary measure, right? So who knows what's going to happen in 2027 if they actually get to that point. You know, but it is what it is. I wish they would have just come down and said, here, just adopt this language and maybe we'll revise it down the road. It would have been a lot less stressful for staff and a lot less stressful for you now.
Any further questions? All right. Thank you, councilors. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I have a question before we do that. Ms. Stephanie, the title on that says, and declaration of emergency.
So that it doesn't have to wait 30 days.
Okay,
But, I mean, in reality, unless it's unanimous. Anyways.
okay. Just asking.
I don't know. What's the ordinance number?
I don't have one, so I didn't want to waste a number in case you guys didn't
Okay.
move forward.
Okay.
So you would just be adopting ordinance and then that's titled.
I would like to move to approve ordinance number XXX, an ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending Title 9, Chapter 9-05 and declaring an emergency.
Here's a second. I'll second. Okay. We got a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Or do you want to do a roll call?
Do roll call.
Do roll call.
Please.
Oh, yeah, on the ordinance. All right, Councilor Weller. Councilor Norman?
Beyond my real beliefs, I'm gonna go for it to protect our citizens. That's the only reason I'm gonna vote yes on it, is for the flood insurance for the people.
Councilor Wagner? And I'm an aye.
Any counselor wish to have this ordinance read in full? Thank you for not requesting it. This is the first reading of ordinance yet to be numbered, an ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending Title 9, Chapter 9-05 and declaring an emergency. So this will come forward at the next meeting, August 4th, for final adoption.
I thought we could read it again.
Only if it's unanimous.
It's unanimous.
Oh, yeah.
Question, we are having the noticed meeting on Monday. Can that be added to that so we could get it before,
If possible, I will add it for Monday.
with permission from consensus from my peers?
I'll verify that I can do that, and if so, I will bring it on the 28th.
Then we'll beat the 31st deadline.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Which
true.
would be nice.
All right, thank you. And at this time, oh, I guess we already closed the hearing and we're done with that. Okay. Consent agenda for acceptance. Parks Committee meeting minutes for May of 2025.
I move to accept the consent agenda for acceptance.
Here a second.
No, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda for approval. City Council meeting minutes from June 30th and July 7th.
I move to approve to accept the consent agenda for approval.
Here a second. Did you second?
Oh, no.
Donald, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Don't think we have any unfinished business? No new business? Business from departments? Department update. Sergeant?
So what you have before you is the staff report for May and June of 2025. May calls for service were 232, and for June it was 257. The big numbers that poke out to me are the domestic. You got the harassment and threats. Premise checks are roughly about the same. Looks like June, the traffic stops kind of dropped a little bit by half. I did, so 2010, the city purchased Glock 22 Gen 4 40 cal handguns. And at that time, it cost us about $3,300. So these guns are about 15 years old. So I was left with that I had to make a decision. The new Gen 5s are about, for the guns we need, are about $2,400. So I sent Officer Ratliff to Glock Armor School so that he's trained to repair the existing guns we have, so we're not having to spend money on new guns. I can try to get a few more years out of the ones that we have. An update, I want to say, when was that? Was that in April that the mayor asked us to look into getting bicycle helmets for the juveniles that are running around with no helmets? Problem we're running into is that one outfit wanted anywhere between $6.55 to $11.55 per helmet, and they wanted a minimum of 24 plus. We did find that the company that we did the bicycle rodeo with, they were willing to sell us helmets for $750 a piece, or we can pay $750 and they'll bring out, a handful of them, like the bicycles. So we don't know what we're gonna do yet, because we got to find the money to do this.